What up, Wizards? It's Dev and the Dragon back again. What's going on, my friend? Good to have you.
Not too much. I was firing finger guns at the people. I don't know if that's a thing anymore, but there you go.
We can make it a thing again. We should bring it back, you know. I don't know why it would have ever gone away.
Exactly.
We have got something for y'all today, man. Foundations is a wild set, and it's huge. It's last I checked, it was like 16,000 cards, something like that.
I don't know. It's like 300 or 400 cards, but everything has like 4 versions or something. Like I don't know what's going on.
I can't imagine how much cardboard was actually involved in the making of this set, but there are so many new and exciting cards and so many amazing reprints that we decided to split up the old series this time around and do videos, underrated and overrated videos for both the reprints and the new stuff. And this time around, we are doing the overrated reprints. So we're both going to give you 5 reprints from this set that we think are overrated. And to be honest, of all 4 videos we're doing, this is the one that I am sweating the most. I think the people are going to disagree with some of my picks.
That's fair. And we'll try to keep this fairly quick compared to our other ones because we are going to have 4 videos this time coming out instead of just 2. So it'll be 2 on each of our channels. So that's a thing too.
Yeah, man, it's we're like he said, we're going to try to keep it expeditious, whatever the word is, but you know how we are, we're a chatty couple of fellows, so we'll see how all that goes, man. But let's go ahead and jump right into it. In the interest of expediting things, you are the guest, so I want to know what your number 5 most overrated reprint in Foundations is.
Dude, I really thought about this, and I settled on my first one being Fumigate.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Because and really to be honest, it could have been Day of Judgment as well. I mean, either one would have sufficed here, but Fumigate bothered me more because it's in the same set as Day of Judgment. Like why? Like when are we ever going to play Fumigate over Day of Judgment? Like we might maybe if I'm playing, but even then, if I'm playing like a big token thing, like, do I really want to be gaining life from killing my own creatures or whatever? Like, maybe, but like, it's just a weird card to include. I was like, why is this even in there? Right? Because not to mention, we already have, even in standard right now, a decent 4 mana sweeper. We have an well overplayed 5 mana sweeper in Sunfall, right? We have an Expel sweeper that makes tokens. So it's like, when are we ever going to play this?
So, yeah, the argument here that rings most true with me is the Sunfall argument. Why would you ever play this over Sunfall? But Sunfall won't be in standard forever, I guess.
Sure.
Day of Judgment, I think, is just a million times better because, you know, it's 4 mana and it's kind of strictly better than the 4 mana sweeper White already had. No witnesses. It's not going to leave behind a clue or anything for them. So I think Day of Judgment actually has like a purpose, whereas I'm not too sure about Fumigate. But one quick thought. There is a kind of life gain control, like an Orzhov. We're doing stuff, but we're not, you know, playing a bunch of creatures. We're trying to hit like a life gain combo of some kind with that new 5 mana guy that's basically an Exquisite Blood. So I see maybe we're playing, Virtue of Persistence, a removal spell that gains us life, stuff like that. And I could see Fumigate being okay if you needed a way to trigger life gain and sweep the board at the same time, like Fumigate literally does that. But that's such a small niche, and I don't think that deck is particularly good sounding. So I'm not sure Fumigate is ever going to really.
Even then, we have White Sun's Twilight still, or whatever that thing is.
Yeah, and that gains life, that sweeps everything, that makes tokens. Yeah, true.
That's why I was sitting there looking, going like, why does Fumigate exist?
Yeah.
Like, now, again, to your point, I think there's a lot of things in the set that will end up being better or worse because they're going to be around for 5 years.
Yeah, we need to go ahead and get that one out of the way, I guess. Yeah.
So
that argument.
What's around today obviously won't be around tomorrow. And maybe, just maybe, they decide, hey, we don't want to have to put waste slots on sweepers in every set, so we'll just have these sit around for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's the idea, and eventually we don't have White Sun's Twilight, we don't have Sunfall, we don't have whatever, right? And maybe Fumigate and Day of Judgment become the white sweepers. And if so, okay, cool, we'll play them. But I'm definitely not excited to see it in this rare slot right now.
I like that idea that things like, negate and duress and cancel and lots of cards like that and giant growth, whatever, they were printed in this set. And so hopefully that means you don't have to just reprint negate and duress a million times in other sets.
Yeah.
And I like that idea that maybe these are going to be like the 2 white sweepers. Now we don't have to focus on like making sure that's a slot in every single set. That's a nice idea. But yeah, Fumigate itself, I agree, is not great. But,
well, all right. What do you got? Because mine was kind of mundane.
I feel you. Number 5, I feel like is number 5 because it is the least controversial of these. I think that most people are going to be like, oh yeah, it's probably not that good. Demonic Pact is my number 5. Yeah, this is the enchantment that you're supposed to get all the benefit from and then harmless offering it to your opponent before it kills you. So that it kills them instead. It's the modern day, like, donate your enchantment combo. Yeah. And I think that it is probably a bit too slow, all things considered. I think there's too much enchantment hate in standard right now. There are too many good counter spells to counter the harmless offering and you just die. So I have too many problems with this combo deck. Even though it's a 2-card combo, it's not like it wins the game immediately. Like, it takes multiple turns to do that. So unless you're really well set up and it's like your win condition in a control deck, I don't think that it's good enough. And I think there's just better win conditions in control decks than to have to play, like, spend 8 slots on this. Right. So
yeah, I think this is going to be a case of like people who just started playing Magic over the last 4 years never really got a chance to see this do a thing. So they're going to be like, oh, there's this cool combo and I can just like give them a card and they lose. Yet those of us that are old guard, we've been around since like Illusions of Grandeur, donate or whatever, right? And then we lived through this combo, whatever it was, 6 years ago or whatever. Yeah. And then now we'll be able to do it again, right? So if you've seen it, you've seen it. You're not going to be that impressed by it. I think newer players might sneak it in there, so you'll probably run into it on the standard ladder on Arena every once in a while. But I think that's probably going to be the most we see out of this. So I'm with you on this one. I think it gets people excited to see it come around and like, oh, they're making combo stuff available in Foundations. But that's about it, really. There's not much more to that story.
Yeah, and by all means, try to live the dream. And I'm sure content creators will be doing it. But, I wouldn't spend Mythic wildcard slots on it and stuff like that if you didn't want to. Like, if you wanted to hit Mythic, I wouldn't. Yeah. I would not necessarily spend the slots on these cards.
I'm with you. Don't let your memes be dreams. Get them out there. But I don't think it's worth spending the resources on it.
Right. But that means that we are on your number 4, PowrDragn. What's going to be?
I had to double check my order here to be sure, but I was right with 1000-Year Storm.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
This is one 100%. Where like this falls back into don't let your memes be dreams,
Mm-hmm.
Like I just want to warn people. The last time this was standard legal, and we had a decent amount of good spells to go with it.
Yeah, we did.
People really tried to make fetch happen with this, man. I mean, serious. And it just didn't. And the thing is, on a card like this, I don't hate that it exists because it'll be a fun build around being content creators. When we're deep in the season, be like, you know what? Let's put together a 1000-Year Storm deck and just have some fun, right? Like, but the reality is, I don't think you're going to play this as a card to rank up with. Matter of fact, I think if you're playing spells and you want to play 6 mana, I have something on my underrated list when we're talking about new cards that I think is much better than this for 6 mana. Spoilers. And I just think this is one of those cards that's a trap. It gets you a little bit in trouble because you end up trying to build around the 6 mana thing. Because you're going to get all this value from your cards. And like, theoretically, it will happen every once in a while. But it doesn't have the inevitability that other 6 mana cards tend to have. And I think that's the real issue here.
Yeah, the inevitability looks high, but it's not actually as high as it seems. The thing about 1000-Year Storm is that building around the card is a trap. These people who are like, I'm going to build an Is It Spells deck around 1000-Year Storm, or I'm going to build a burn deck, or I'm going to build a Grixis control deck, and 1000-Year Storm's a win condition, and it never works. I think 1000-Year Storm, if it's going to see play in standard, might have a place in like the Teamer Doppelgang deck. As just like a 1 or 2 of, Silver Bullet to copy your doppelgangs and other things that you might cast, copy your.
But even then, if you doppelgang for like 3, it's usually just game over anyway.
That's where I was going to end up. Exactly. You are very smart because like it's probably just win more, even in like the one deck I think it fits in. So yeah, I'm just not really sure where this goes. There are multiple 6 mana enchantments in this set that I do like. There's a thing that like makes dragons whenever you cast spells. That thing is sick. There's a thing that like every turn you get to copy a non-land permanent. It's a blue enchantment. That thing is bad, dude. This I'm not like as impressed by. I remember it was kind of fun to play, but like it never really did much. So
it's exciting to say I get to copy all my stuff, right? Don't get me wrong, like it really is, but it's just so much work to get so little at the end of everything.
So you have to play a 6-mana enchantment and untap with it on the table in the same format where people are trying to kill like Caretaker's Talent and Unholy Annex. You know, every deck plays a main deck baller enchantment that everyone is packing main deck removal for. So like, good luck, I guess, trying to make this work.
I'm not feeling it at all. Like, don't be wrong, you might be able to build a deck with it.
Yeah.
But this is another one I'm not spending any resources on. If you have them, cool, go for it. But I wouldn't waste the cards or the money.
I mean, yeah, if you're going to build an Is It Spells deck with ThousandYear Storm, prepare to never actually get to ThousandYear Storm.
Well, hell, there's like, better cards, even if you want to play the spells deck, because we even got extra creatures that got printed that care about you casting spells.
Yeah, like, a lot of those are good.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're on my number 4 here. I think this is where I start taking like a little bit of heat. My number 4 is Swiftfoot Boots. And I will begin this entry with a reminder. We haven't done this yet in this series, or at least in this recording, that us saying a card is overrated doesn't necessarily mean it's like completely unplayable or anything like that.
Sure.
I think Swiftfoot Boots being printed into standard is an experiment. I think that a couple of years ago, they came out and said like, okay, we're going to start giving you better and cheaper, more efficient removal for all these threats. And I think that printing Swiftfoot Boots into a standard like that, where they certainly have given us more efficient removal in the last couple of years, printing Swiftfoot Boots into that kind of standard is actually really neat. So I don't think this card is bad in standard. I don't. I think there's a reason we don't often see it. But I still think that this is an equipment that you have to devote mana to get it on the table in the first place. You have to actually hook it up to something without that guy dying to removal. And all the usual things, apply, right? And not to mention that we just talked about how there's a bunch of enchantment removal in the format being main decked right now. And a lot of that same enchantment removal incidentally also destroys artifacts. So like, how long is your Swiftfoot Boots going to be out? So I have some doubts. I think it goes kind of well in Valiant decks, right? But other than that, I'm just not really sure where it goes.
I think the thing for this card is you're kind of right in the point of, I think it's still going to get played, but I do think there's immediate hype of like, oh man, there's Swiftfoot Boots, because a lot of people that play Commander are familiar with Swiftfoot Boots. It goes into a lot of decks, a lot of times to try to protect your commander so it doesn't die to spot removal. Like, I get it. Will that play the same in standard? I don't know. I do think there's decks like equipment decks that actually do want something like this, so you can protect the thing you've spent the mana to load up on. I think there's some cases where some green decks could use it, where you could play it and just give a big monster haste and get an immediate ability, which would be very cool, because they tend to have the mana to spend anyway.
I think the haste is underrated. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, so I think there's some actually pretty cool things we can do with it, but I think this is a good definition of something being overrated. It can still be played and be good, but when the hype is so high, it's like, I don't know if it's hype worthy. It's just a good quality role player for a lot of decks.
Right, exactly. I don't think this is going to break standard. It'll show up. It'll show up. It'll definitely show up somewhere, and maybe it'll be better than I think. It'll be in every mid-range deck to protect Sheldrids and Beezas and stuff, or maybe it'll be in every Reanimator deck to protect the Atraxa and give it haste. Like, I don't know. Like, there's definitely awesome things about Boots, but people forget that you have to devote sometimes a full turn to getting stuff like this on the table, and that's kind of slow. It just kind of is. So that's my take on Boots. What is your number 3?
My number 3 is Massacre Worm.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I know. I know. As soon as I put, but I thought about this long and hard, because I like Massacre Worm a lot. Actually, I'm a big, doesn't? And this is coming from a guy who plays aggro decks, but like, Massacre Worm's good stuff. I think the problem right now for me really is the cost for what we're getting.
Yeah,
because if we're looking at just giving creatures -2/-2, we already have Harvester of Misery. Right? And Harvester of Misery can be used for 2 mana as spot removal, which is way more important right now against a bunch of the like rabbits and mice and mono red stuff and whatever, right? You need to be able to kill stuff early, which you just can't do with Massacre Worm. And lately, honestly, by the time Massacre Worm hits the board, a lot of those 1 and 2 toughness things are now 4 and 5s.
Yeah, they're big.
Yeah, yep. So you don't even get the chance to kill them. So I also looked at the idea of, okay, well, what if we're reanimating this? But then the list of reanimator targets is gross.
Way better.
Yeah, we're not going to be playing Massacre Worm.
Even in reanimator, Harvester's still better because like it puts itself into your graveyard, where this doesn't. So.
Exactly. So just like, where does this fit? And this is sad because there was a time where Massacre Worm was like the scary card, right? You just didn't want your opponent to like morph a Massacre Worm or whatever and just get you, right? That's just not a thing right now. Like it's a cool card. I think it's neat. I'm like, the times it does resolve, it will still be a good Magic card.
Right.
The problem is, how often is that going to happen in those situations?
It's like, I think that this having a very similar line of text to Archfiend of the Dross means they might go well in the same decks together. But also the decks that play Archfiend of the Dross, like the Unholy Annex, Golgari or blue-black decks, probably just can't fit Massacre Worm into the main, and they probably don't want it in the side either. Your point about Harvester just being better is probably like the bottom line on this one. I don't see a world where we choose Worm over Harvester 9 times out of 10.
Well, even the other black decks, right? They're playing the 2/4 demon. They're gonna play that new guy, the 5 mana one that you lose twice your life or whatever that thing is. The big,
that guy.
Yeah, there's all kinds of crazy stuff you're gonna play for less mana than this.
Right? And even at 6 mana, we've already got Vein Ripper and in Foundations. If you want an ability like Massacre Worm, Vein Ripper's kind of adjacent. But also Liliana, Dreadhorde General, the 6 mana Liliana's in Foundations. And I think like most days, I'd rather resolve Liliana than Massacre Worm.
Sure.
So, it's going to be tough for this poor little guy. We all love him so much. To see some play, but I think
like
that's
I said, I'm a fan. I like the card, but the more I stared at it, I'm like, I'm probably never going to play this.
Yeah.
Like, which is just sad.
It's very sad because he's awesome.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Mass Worm. The big worm, big perm, all that.
Big worm.
But sorry, little guy. But
all right. What do you got? Maybe something more uplifting than mine.
No, I think that this is the one where people are going to take out the pitchforks and torches and such. This is this is where things really start to turn for me. Number 3 is Lathril Blade of the Elves.
Okay. All right.
It's a 4-drop they can cut down.
That's fair.
I don't get it, man. Like, I get that Elves is back, and I think that when you play Elves, by the way, Massacre Worm is a good argument against Elves. Just throwing that out there. But if Elves is back, this is the 4-drop. It's like this and Dwynen are both good 4s. So I think this might see play. If Elves is a real deck, it has to be like the win con for Elf Ball. But at the same time, we're in a temporary lockdown standard. How many Elves are you going to have? We're in a Pyroclasm standard. They just reprinted that card. How many Elves are you going to have? Elves, the format is very hostile to Elves at the moment. And I just don't think you're going to get to like 10 Elves very easily and win the game with Lathril. I think most of the time it's just a 4-mana 2/3 and is bad. That's, I think, is what's going on here.
I'll tell you this. My bigger issue is I think Elves will be just more of a straightforward aggro deck and doesn't need to do all the tricks.
Probably
mostly
not.
Because this season and last season, I've experimented with some elf decks that were actually playable.
Yeah.
And if you're giving me like a Llanowar elf and you're going to give me an Archdruid and whatever, and I get a couple other things that pump elves on top of getting to do the things I was already doing, like, why do I need Lathril? I'll just be attacking with 4/4s.
Yeah, I think that everyone wants the Elves deck to be Elf Ball. And I'm pretty sure that the Elves deck is just like Elf aggro.
You
like you were saying.
Honestly, you can produce every color of mana very easily. You can get all the mana you want. So you literally just play Elves, pump your Elves, and play Voja. There are no tricks. You just do what the deck's trying to do.
Exactly.
So you probably... Now, again, if we're talking about 2 years from now, maybe there's a home for her, right? Like, but right now, the way things look, I'm with you. I don't think I want to play this in my elf deck.
Yeah.
I think more often than not, I want to play so many other cards that are doing a ton of other things that just have more instant value, either pumping the team, making mana, killing an artifact or enchantment, whatever, instead of having to build up to try to use this ability.
Yeah, I want to pump the team. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't actually do much in that avenue. So, agreed. I'm glad that I was thinking maybe I get some pushback, but we'll see about the comment section. What we are on your number 2. Where are we going?
This one's what I'm gonna catch a little hell on because it's not super hyped, but I did see some people excited it's getting reprinted. We're talking about Maze's End.
Oh, okay, yeah. Maze's End control like could exist.
Yeah, exactly. But my problem is this version of control going to realistically be better than anything else that exists right now?
Probably not.
We have 8-9 different styles of control decks right now. This is just a much slower version of doing what those others are doing better.
Yeah.
Additionally, this card eats up a mythic slot. What the hell?
Yeah, I don't really understand why it's mythic either.
I was stunned. I genuinely thought this was rare, and then when I was going through making my notes, I went, "Wait a minute, why the hell is this mythic?" This is going to be one of the sadder mythics to open, honestly.
Yeah, trust me. Just let me save you a lot of heartbreak on this card, because what's going to happen is you'll be up against a control deck and you'll think, "Ha, I can just slow roll them. I got this in the bag. They can't do anything about what I'm doing. They just got a handful of dead removal." And then you'll go to activate your Maze's End, and they will Tishana's Tidebinder it.
Yeah.
So I'm just letting you know that's going to happen. Don't play this card. It's probably too slow. Do you remember when Gates came out like a year ago and everyone was like, "Oh, the Gates lands control deck looks pretty good," and nothing ever happened.
Yep.
So I have the same kind of feeling.
I see so many decks now that are just playing demolition fields just because.
Oh yeah, all the time. Constantly. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I'm thinking Tidebinder and stuff. But yeah, just we have multiple strip mine effects in this format. So
yes, I'm just not feeling it. It just
probably don't mess with it. The one plan that I have for this that I kind of seal of approval on is Lumra. Right? If you can somehow mill your entire library and then Lumra all of the gates back into play and then activate Maze's End, profit, that may be that. But
I could give you that. That's a legit way to use it.
You could, but even that, I think there's just better stuff you could be doing, probably.
Well, that's true. You can just win a bunch of other ways. If you
can already put your whole library in your yard and do that, just play deserts instead and hit your opponent for $1 million.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was literally about to say that. If I'm going to do that, wouldn't I be better off just pinging my opponent throughout the course of the game versus having to hope I have enough in the actual graveyard, and then they come into play, and then I have to search for another gate.
Right.
Yeah.
All very silly.
Yeah.
It really is. Isn't it basically also though a thawing glaciers but for gates? Can't you, if I'm remembering the card correctly, can't you use it to go search for a gate?
The wording is, return this land to its owner's hand, search your library for a gate card, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. If you control 10 or more gates with different names, you win the game.
Yeah, that's the best part of the card. Not the you win the game part, but the go get a land every turn or two is actually the best part of the card, and that's still not very good.
If you're slow is the problem. It takes 3 mana.
And this isn't 1996 when Thawing Glaciers was really good. Nowadays, if you're going to spend mana on a land effect at the end of your opponent's turn, we have Fountain Port, Mirex. We have 1,000 better ways to spend mana at the end of our opponent's turn on a land than this. So,
dude, once upon a time, Thawing Glaciers and Keldor Outpost.
I was thinking Keldor and Outpost too.
They were the backbone of control decks, and those
they
would say in the South, slow as molasses going down a tree in the winter. I mean, it was. They were slow.
It was bad. You'd see both of them too, but the control deck would get to a point where it could activate both of them at the end of your turn, and you're just drowned. You're done. But yeah, man, we're far past that now. This card's just bad. It's bad.
It's not a thing.
All right, my number 2 here, and I actually think people will understand this one. It's Omniscience. All right, so let me say this about Omniscience. Okay, there are a number of ways in this environment to cheat this card out. We have a lot of ways of cheating just about anything out right now, whether it be reanimation or Hauntwood Shrieker does a thing. They can't do the thing with Omniscience, but you can manifest dread Omniscience, and then there's a couple of spells in standard that you can like blink it and it becomes Omniscience when it comes back. So like there's tricks to get this card on your side of the table, and it's probably the best card in standard to do that. Maybe, right? But all that said, I still think the overrated tag kind of applies here, because decks trying to get Omniscience onto the table are probably not going to be the best decks in standard.
That's probably accurate. I mean, here's the thing. It's one of those cards that when it sticks, it's really good, right? Honestly, if it doesn't end the game, it at least gives you a huge advantage. And that's okay. I think you aim for that and, shoot for the moon,
Yeah.
But there are a lot of times the decks that ends up in kind of end up a little bit clunky.
Yeah.
Right? Now, this might end up being part of some like Sultai Reanimator sort of type deck where you can get it cheap out of your graveyard and, maybe
somehow, Squirming Emergence.
Yeah, something like that space could be used. But even then, I'm kind of thinking about how those decks play. They spend a fair amount of cards getting stuff into the graveyard and yada yada, so they don't even have that many spells in hand to utilize. So they might still just be better off getting one of their big creatures and trying to combo or whatever. So I don't know. I think it feels like type of card that when it's good, it's great. But when it's bad, it's just clunky and terrible and you just fell behind. I think if it shows up anywhere, it's like maybe in 2 prominent decks, maybe, and that's probably it. I don't think we're going to see a lot of it.
Yeah, I don't think we'll have to like ban Omniscience. It's like you touched on an important point. Like you still have to have cards in your hand to play for free, right? When you get your Omniscience down, and like that's usually not a problem. Omniscience is a very powerful card, but most of the time, I think in current standard, I would rather resolve an Atraxa or a Valgavoth or an Atali or like something with a big enter the battlefield trigger, right? That gets me immediate value than Omniscience, which I have to build value on. And right. And I think there's going to be some combo decks or whatever that want to do the thing with Omniscience, but I just think that we're in a format right now that's balanced enough to include Omniscience, and it's actually not as scary as it looks,
Yeah. I think when your opponent gets it, you're going to be hating life, right? Just how the card is.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a lot of times you kill them before that's in play.
Yeah. It's like we've all fallen prey to a rogue Omniscience from time to time in our Magic playing lives. And like, I don't know, it's fun. Let it be fun. I don't know.
I mean, the thing is, it's like
so few and far between.
There's also situations where you say, like, would they rather cast that or just like a Breach the Multiverse?
Right. That's another good example, right? Like Breach is kind of insane. When you think about it, and it costs 3 less mana than an Omniscience. Like people just resolve
I don't
Breach.
know. Like you don't have to do tricks to play a lot of the other powerful cards. That's basically what I'm saying. So you kind of have to go out of your way to make this work. But when you do, the payoff it's one of those things that's very high ceiling, but also a fairly low floor.
Yeah. It's like most of the decks that do play Omniscience and reliably get it onto the table, they always seem to have 6 or 7 cards in their hand. Like they're spoiled for choice when it comes to right. And then they draw 3 and they have more cards they can play for free. And one of those draws cards. Like, again, Omniscience is ridiculous, but I just don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah.
What is your number one? And I kind of wonder if it's my number one too.
No, it's definitely not, because I have a toss up in this spot that I was decided, depending on how I felt when we got here, I was going to talk about one or the other. And believe it or not, I think I want to put this here so we can have a conversation. So I'm going to go with Savannah Lions here.
Okay.
And hear me out. This isn't
Let's have a conversation.
This is more about having a conversation about Magic than the card itself being overrated, right? Because the one thing about Foundations is people got excited about seeing all these old cards they knew and loved or whatever being reprinted. Like somewhat of this being like a love letter to Magic on some level, right? Because we got like Llanowar Elves and tons of other just fun cards. But the reality is Savannah Lions is just not that good of a Magic card anymore.
Not anymore.
Like a 1 mana 2/1 is just okay.
Yeah, it's supposed to do something. It's supposed to have upside beyond that.
Hell, in the last set, we just got a Survivor. That's a 2/1 for 1 or whatever.
And all of us were like, yeah, it's not that good.
Yeah, like it's all right, but at least has an ability to remove stuff from the graveyard. Like this doesn't even do that. So it's just like if I'm playing the cat deck for sure, and there's enough cats that you can build around.
The creature type is what carries the card now.
Absolutely. Yeah. But outside of that, it just says this is how Magic has changed, right? Like it's cool to see like Sarah Angel get reprinted and a Shivan Dragon get reprinted, but like we're just not going to play any of those cards.
Yeah, what do they do?
Like Shivan Dragon at cost is a terrible dragon now. Like it just is.
Right.
Like Sarah Angel is like acceptable, but
barely.
But we also reprinted what's her name? The other angel is a 5/5. Yeah, Lyra Dawnbringer, right? So it's like we're never gonna play Sarah Angel, right? Like, which is crazy to think about. These were the all-stars of the game for the first 4 or 5 years of its existence, and now we never will play those cards in a competitive deck again.
Yep. There's a angel deck, right? We got Giada, we got Youthful Valkyrie back, we got tons of good angels in standard, Steel Seraph, whatever. Like there's a potential angels deck you could play competitively, and like Sarah Angel's not in it.
Hell, I'll play the reprinted, what is it? Angelic Destiny or whatever before I play Sarah Angel.
Before I play Sarah Angel, exactly. Yeah.
Like it's just that. And that's sort of the thing you look at on something like a Savannah Alliance, right? Like if you're on a budget and you just need a 1 mana 2/1, then like cool, it's awesome this got reprinted as an uncommon.
Yeah.
But realistically, this probably could have been a common.
Yeah.
It doesn't even need to be an uncommon. Like, do we care that it's a 2/1 for 1 with no ability, just vanilla? Yeah, it's just how the mighty have fallen. Like this is just one of those things. It's just we're in a different place with Magic today.
Yeah, far different.
But
power creep is real.
If you're playing the cat deck, like we said, absolutely, this is the first 4 up in the deck.
That's your one drop. We don't have access to like Ocelot Pride in standard, so you just play the Savannah Lions, But yeah, it is wild to see what happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And honestly, I don't think that's a bad thing. I know people are going to go, "Oh, power creep is awful," but like every game needs to progress. And I don't even think it's necessarily power creep, but just the way we play Magic has changed. Like we've learned so much more. Like we value different things. Like people forget there was a point where the idea of playing a card like Curse Scroll and playing mono red and emptying your hand was insane. Like nobody played Magic like that. It was all about
nobody understood. Right. It was hard to bend your brain around that concept, but it makes perfect sense.
Now people don't even question it. Right. Like so it's a kind of, while these are some fun cards and foundations, there's a lot that is just like, these are just more nostalgic throwbacks than anything. Like if you need some budget options for some stuff, they're fine, but you're not going to want to keep them for very long.
Right. But that's, I think that's okay because Savannah Lions, Sarah Angel, Shivan Dragon, whatever, they're all in the draft environment. They'll all be at the pre-release. So like newer Magic players just getting into foundations and stuff will like, kind of be like us, like their first experiences will also be with some of these cards. And that's nice.
The familiarity that if you haven't played Magic for a while and you come back, there's going to be 30, 40 cards you recognize immediately. And that's good.
And Shivan Dragon and Sarah Angel and stuff, like they might kind of suck in standard, but 5 mana 4/4 flyer.
Oh yeah.
6 mana 5/5 flyer. They're always going to be good in limited, right?
Yep, get
it. But here we are, I think, at my number 1 here.
All right.
And it is doubling season. I'm just out with it. It's doubling season. So this card costs 5 mana.
Yeah.
There's my argument. This card costs 5 mana. This I actually messed up and said at one point during the season that like, would you rather do this or the Innkeeper's Talent combo with Vraska? Right? Because they both win the game immediately, but they don't. They actually don't, because doubling season doesn't double the number of counters on players the way that Innkeeper's Talent does. So the Innkeeper Vraska thing is still the better way to go about things. This could be in a Planeswalker deck, some sort of, like extra redundancy with an Innkeeper's Talent or something like that. I don't count this out of seeing play. Doubling tokens is always freaking sick, dude. But like, how long have we had Mondrak in standard and it's done diddly squat? We've got that thing from the Ixalan set that costs 6 mana, but it like triples the amount of tokens you get.
Yeah.
How much play has she seen? I don't know that this is for the cost for the rate, I don't know if this is really where you want to be.
I thought about this card a bit too. Like, I think, maybe you play a one of in some decks if you're already doing a lot of tokens, or you're playing something with +1/+1 counters or whatever. Like, that could be pretty sweet. But I think it's going to be a hard card to try to build around. If that's what you want, to play more than even 2 copies of it in a lot of decks. Because ultimately, it's a card that, while the effect is very powerful, it doesn't do anything on its own. Right? For 5 mana, you have to have really a board setup to take advantage of it. Otherwise, just like, I made 2 tokens. Awesome. Right? That's not enough. Right? And it's an awesome reprint. Don't get me wrong. Like, especially for a commander. Like, this card's been reprinted. This is like the 4th or 5th time it's been reprinted.
Yeah.
And every time it's still like $40.
Yeah, it's $40-$50. It's still really expensive.
Yeah, so people will still want the card, and it's a great card to open. But I'm with you. Unless something changes, and I don't know, maybe there's some weird elf combo thing or whatever. Like, that's probably the spot where this lives. But outside of that, I don't see more than a fun of 1 copy, maybe 2 showing up in some decks.
Yeah, it's like, you can cast hop to it after you. Congrats on all your 1/1 tokens.
All right, have 6 1/1s, I guess.
Right, cool. I just, I think it's interesting for decks like, say, a Caretaker's Talent thing, but it feels kind of win-more-y for those decks too. So I'm just not really sure where it fits either. And 5 mana is a lot to ask. It really is.
It is.
Especially, again, one more time in this video, just a format that's pretty hostile to enchantments at the moment, that not only includes all this main deck enchantment hate that just like specifically blows up enchantments, but they also like all have Get Lost, which can blow up enchantments and creatures and stuff. So like every deck has enchantment removal. And I just feel like if you spend all 5 mana on your turn to cast this card, like, you're just gonna get blown out some of the time. So I'm not a fan.
Yeah, like I said, I like the card. It's fun. I'll play it in other stuff, but anything competitive for 60 card, I'm probably not playing more than 1 or 2 copies, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Silver bullet and see what happens, load it up. But that is all of our cards. I don't think that we had any real disagreements this time whatsoever. No. And we didn't have any crossover from list to list, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah, I think this was a case where this set is huge. There's going to be a lot to love, a lot to dislike, like, no matter what your preferences are. Like, some people will probably love cards on our list and go, how can you dare think these are overrated? But there's plenty in this set. And we're going to be playing with these for 5 years. So the thing to keep in mind is these opinions are going to change, right? Like, as the format changes or what new cards get reprinted. Hell, our opinions might be different come February when we get the Aether Drift or whatever that thing is.
Yeah, the racing set.
Yeah, we might immediately go like, oh, all these things that help artifacts, that might be a big deal with all these vehicles. Well, now we have a different opinion of some of these cards.
Yeah, good point.
So who knows? The environment might become hostile to artifacts instead of enchantments.
Who knows? Right. That's the beauty of Standard, is the ever shifting landscape, and these cards get a long time. So, point well taken. Just one more time. One of these could be the best card in Standard 4 years from now, because that's forever. It's a long time. But that's all we've got for this one. Anything else you got left to say? Any other cards you want to point out? Anything you want to say that you didn't get to say on any of these?
No, that's it. There'll be plenty on streams or on my channel or whatever. People want to check it out. We're going to be talking about this set for months, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, perhaps even years. It's going to be
probably.
Yeah. This is really going to have an effect, to say the least. But, well, I guess that's all we got for this one, everybody. Just let us know how you felt down there in the comments section. Do all the YouTube stuff. Hit the button shaped like a thumb down there. It's shaped like a thumb. I hear it puts the video in more recommended feeds, but I don't believe it. So let's test that theory, see if it happens. Sub to the sandwich, get you some meatballs. If you want more of the content, there's a lot more of it coming out. We have 3 more videos we're going to do. So hurry over to his channel and check out the underrated reprints from this set, because we do have positive things to say about some of these cards. But anyway, that's all I got. Take us out, PowrDragn. Give me one more goodbye to the people.
Yeah, come by the channel. We have stuff up every day. Literally, I crossed the 4.5 year mark for making content every single day on YouTube, which is crazy. So yeah, if you want something to watch magic wise, come check me out. It's PowrDragn, PowrDragn, and you're always welcome over there.
Appreciate you, man. Yeah, we'll leave a link to PowrDragn's channel down there. Check him out. He might have actually the longest daily content streak on YouTube. We need to check that because that's ridiculous. But anyway, everybody, just do all the stuff on your way out. Check out the Patreon, link in the description to all the blah blahs. You know how it is. It's YouTube. Anyway, I'm donezo for this onezo. So is this man here. So we will catch you cats later. I'm Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.